So you joined the Google Ads Ecom Academy, you did the product research, you built your own website, you launched your Google Ad campaigns, and in the last 7 days, you've generated around about £740 in revenue, which is about $1,000. So if we just take a quick look at your Shopify dashboard here, we can see between October 7th to the 15th, £740 in sales, 4 orders, and a 1.5% conversion rate. Now, not only that, but if we take a look at your profit and loss, which you kindly shared with me, and we look at the numbers here, which are at the moment in Norwegian crowns, but we've converted them to pounds, which is a conversion rate at the moment of 0.074. If we look at this here, we can see from the 7th of October through to the 15th, you've generated 4 sales here. We scroll down, that equates to £75 in spend, which is about $100. And off the back of that, you've done £740 in revenue, again, about $1,000, and profit is £340. So that's a 45% net profit margin and around about a 10x return on advertising spend. Keep in mind that, of course, you're a complete beginner who joined the academy, but prior to joining, you actually had a bit of experience with meta ads dropshipping, right? So first of all, congrats on the numbers.
Thanks.
To be achieving this and only in the last 7 days is fantastic. We'll certainly take a good look at your Google Ads in just a moment. Now's the time to kind of double down and scale now that we've got proof of concept. But before we do that, maybe you could just share a little bit about your experience, because I know you first started dropshipping back in January of this year, and you could just kind of share what that's been like for you so far.
Yeah, so that's right. Like I started with dropshipping about January this year, started with meta ads and started with dropshipping of the fashion, took a coaching. I paid actually 10K for a coaching that teaches about that, just tested multiple products, fashion products using meta ads. And in total, I used, I think, like $20,000 on ads the last couple of months prior to joining your mentorship. I kind of get a little bit discouraged by the end because I just burned through all that cash. So we are now like 30 G's deep into, dropshipping game and still really not seeing any result. And now like the results that you just showed, right, the last week or so, it's such a different game, right? Like a 10 ROAS on just a little bit of ad spend. And for me, like the coolest thing about it is that previously I was selling basically cheap fashion, and it kind of like felt, a little bit funky, a little bit scammy, let's say, getting tons of chargebacks and getting tons of problems where I had to like explain myself and, maybe do some refunds and whatnot. Right now I'm selling high ticket products, and it just feels much better to also do business this way. So also like just super pumped that it's just like, it isn't even that long time, and those results are totally different. It's totally different with Google Ads, and I like it so much better than meta testing.
Yeah, completely different dynamic from selling like low ticket fashion, where, like you say, poor quality products, chargebacks, trying to keep your payment processes open. And I know these were all things that you went through. And like you say, you didn't feel good while doing it, right? Like, you're selling low quality junk that people don't actually want, and that's reflected in the emails that the customers send you, the refund requests you get, the chargebacks. Like, it doesn't feel good doing business that way. But I think it's worth mentioning, as we look here, like, you put a win in the school community. You had a £545 sale, and if we take a look at the screenshot there, we can see it here. 1 order for £545 generated via branded Google Ads dropshipping. And the best part was, as you mentioned here, you spent £1.40 that day. And I think that was also reflected in your profit and loss, but we can also see it here on Shopify. Look, there it is, that £545, and in the profit and loss here, that was the one there, right? 7,000 Norwegian crowns and around about 4,000 crowns in profit. So that's about how much profit in pounds? £350 or so? No, a little bit less, about £300.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
£300 in profit, and that's just one of your sales.
Yeah,
I know you're selling a few different products. You have some that are lower priced, some that are higher priced. But did you ever believe that something like this was possible with dropshipping as well? So you've never even come into contact with this product. You've found it, sourced it in China, sold it online, and then the supplier has then sent it to the customer. Did you ever think anything like this was even possible?
No, because like my understanding of dropshipping was that you're selling like some kind of gadget or some item that costs you like $10, $30 maybe, and then you sell it for maybe triple that at max. To sell this product, for example, it's in dollars, in US dollars, it's like $750 of revenue for one sale, right?
Yeah.
So when it came to my phone, I mean, I got the notification and I see it, £545, boom, done. And I was even that particular day, I wasn't even around my store. I was just doing something else, minding my own business, and that sale came in And it kind of like, I realized, holy shit. And I also like, one, automatically started to think like, okay, one sale, 300 plus pounds basically profit. Okay, one of those a day, that's like almost 9-10K profit per month from one sale a day.
And it's totally possible, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. You've seen what's possible now. You've had a taste of it, and now it's time to double down. I mean, even in the past 3 days, you've had an order every day, right? And we're spending next to nothing. Your total spend for the month so far, bear in mind we're halfway through October, has been £75. So contrary to Meta, you have the opposite problem, right? Meta, you're overspending and not generating the ROI, whereas Google, we're currently underspending, and that's why we wanted to sit down today so we can actually start doubling down and scaling your campaigns, because you've been through the Google Ads Ecom Academy, you've launched the campaigns as per my instruction, you're generating the results in a single market, and now we want to add on more markets and of course more products. And the good thing about your niche is there are a few different verticals that you can dip into, right? You're not just tied into selling a single product like a lot of these single product dropshipping stores, or you're not tied down to fashion. We're actually selling something where there is almost like an umbrella, and you've got a few different categories that you can niche down into, which is like the perfect scenario. And the other thing, like what we were saying about your niche in the car here, when you first sent it to me for approval, I was like, this is going to crush it, because no other people in the academy have ever suggested doing this niche, and I always know they're the ones that are going to do well when all of the data aligns, plus it's something unique and outside of the box. Like, it's the perfect combination for scale. And I know you even had your concerns with it, right? You said to me a few times like, oh, I don't know if it's the right niche, and like when you first started your ads and it had been a couple of days and you didn't get a sale yet, you were like, oh, you know, I'm already thinking about maybe launching another store. I was like, bro, all the data is in alignment. Just give it some time and you will get there. And I think once you got that first sale, you're like, okay, I see it's possible now. And then over time, as you're seeing, you're getting a sale a day now pretty much. So now we can really kind of push and keep moving forward. But do you remember you had your doubts about this niche?
Yeah, so first of all, like, props to you. And it also shows the power of like just having a mentor in this game, because like if I would be alone, I would probably already give up, to be fair, on that idea, on that product. For example, I would be thinking like, who is going to buy this, right? And I did had my concerns about that niche. I wasn't sure at all, but you kept basically saying the same thing. No, bro, look at the data. Don't follow your feelings.
Yep.
Follow the structure, follow the blueprint. And the way the academy is organized is very, very well organized. It's just step by step, step by step. It's a full system, but it's radically different than just, oh yeah, just go on Facebook ads library and try to find like a winning product and try to steal some creatives from your competitor or whatever. Like that whole approach, your approach is totally different. And yeah, it goes to show that I followed the blueprint step by step. I followed you guys. I was like, okay, let's just, that's why I wanted to work with you. That's why I wanted you as my mentor. And there you go. Works amazing. So right now I only like, it opened my eyes and be like, oh, wow, yeah, this is going to be big.
Yeah. I'm so happy for you, bro. Like every day you're sending me a new screenshot. I'm like, yes, he's got another sale, because I know how it feels when you get those first few sales, especially when you're profitable from the get-go as well. Like what I always say to people in the academy is put aside $1,000 for ad spend, and that ad spend should start be self-fulfilling, right? Because the profit you get from that, you can reinvest back into the ads. Like you're already net positive in profit from a business that you've been running or that's been live on Google Ads for a couple of weeks. Like to put in an initial amount of ad spend and then that be immediately self-fulfilling, you know, it's you've done all of the testing up front with the product research, which is why I always say the truth can be found in the data. If there is alignment, if you follow the 4-step product validation method, it works, you know. But I think that's kind of like enough context as to like what we've done and how we've done it. So now let's take a look into your Google advertising account and essentially scale and plan the next steps. Yeah. So if we pull up Google Ads, at the moment, what we're looking at is data from October 7th to the 15th, which is in alignment with what we were looking at on your profit and loss sheet there. Now, I know yesterday we sat down and we launched another market for you, which is Australia. Initially, you were just selling in one market, which is the UK. Totally fine. I always recommend people just start with one and then branch out into other markets. It's very easy to do that on Google Ads, as you know, because, you know, Australia is also English speaking. So all you need to do is very simply just kind of duplicate your campaigns and make sure that you're reflecting the local currency, which is Australian dollars, which you've done, and everything is set up. We're now advertising in 2 markets, right? So I know you've been busy adding more products as well, which we've also added into the campaigns. So now it's just a case of more products and more markets. There's nothing stopping you also going from Australia to Canada, Canada to the USA, converting your store into European languages using Shopify markets and selling there as well. So you can see how there's a system here. And I often say about scaling horizontally and vertically. Horizontal scale is more products and more markets, and then vertical scale is scaling your advertising spend and doubling down on your winners. So let's take a look at what you've done so far, and we're going to look at data over the period that we're already looking at, which is October 7th to the 15th. Now, first and foremost, what I want to make sure is that your conversion tracking is accurate, and at the moment, it doesn't seem to be. We've got 2 columns here, conversions and conversions by time. The reason we have these two columns is because sometimes there can be a slight conversion lag, and what Google will do is it will attribute the conversion to the first touch point often, right? So if someone actually first clicked on your ad 3 days ago and then converted after 3 days, in Google's eyes, the conversion came 3 days ago, and that will be reflected in the conversions column. But we also have conversions by time, which can show you the conversion at the point of conversion. Therefore, you can see when the first touch point was and also when the conversion has been attributed. Now, at the moment, despite you having 4 sales in the past 7 days, according to Google, there have been none. So there's clearly a conversion tracking issue there. So the first step would be to take a look at your conversion summary. So if we just type in conversions, go to settings, and then go to summary. So if we scroll down, what we have here is your purchase conversion action. Now, according to Google, this needs some attention, and it's saying that the last conversion was recorded on September 17th, 28 days ago. So there has been a conversion that's been tracked, but clearly there's an issue because the last 4 conversions, or the ones that you've achieved in the last 7 days, are not tracking. So first and foremost, we're going to want to make sure we sort that. The reason conversion tracking is important is because Google needs this data to know what's working and what isn't. And also you need to know as well. I mean, it's only a simple setup at the moment. You're just using shopping campaigns, but we still want to know where that conversion has been attributed to, because then we can double down and start scaling. So first things first, you're going to want to contact Simprocess, which is who you're using for conversion tracking. See if they can assist you in doing some troubleshooting and fault testing just to make sure this is set up correctly. Alternatively to that, if you're still experiencing problems, I will put you onto a server-side tracking partner that I use for my own store. They're very good, and it's actually free up until the point when you're generating 100 conversions a month, and then you have to pay for it. So see how you get on with Simprocess. If you're still facing issues, I'll put you onto server-side tracking, which is quite accurate. For me, I'm getting about 80% conversion tracking accuracy on my store, which is obviously a lot more than what you're getting at the moment. So really important that you get that sorted first. Now let's take a quick look at the campaigns. Obviously, you added on Australia just yesterday, so there's not really too much for us to see here. You can see you've had 700 impressions, or 792 to be precise, and 3 clicks. So too early for us to really take anything from this. Like sometimes people will launch Google ads and they'll be like, oh, hey bro, I've been spending for 3 days, I've had 10 clicks, now what do I do? I'm like, bro, it's too early. You can't do anything with 10 clicks. Like, it's not enough data to make an informed decision. Like, you wouldn't make a decision in your own life or your personal life with that much information, would you? You need the full picture to make an informed decision. It's the same with Google ads. Like, if you understand the metrics, if you understand the data points, you can leverage them to your ability, but we need the full picture. Otherwise, it's just a stab in the dark, which is why conversion tracking is important as well, because we need to clearly see what your cost per conversion is. We need to see what other metrics are leading towards conversions and stuff like that. Okay, following everything so far?
Yeah, it's so much different than Meta, where a lot of people I think expect just, okay, I'm paying for ads, where's the clicks, where's the conversions? Where with Google, it's way much more. I feel like the word that comes to my mind is like mature, a bit more long term, let's say.
Yeah,
it's way much more in depth. You maybe need to be a little bit more patient, but also you're so much more profitable. So it makes so much more sense.
Yeah, it definitely. They're very different in the way that they operate. Obviously, Meta, you're charged based on your CPM, which is your cost per 1,000 views, whereas Google you're charged based on your CPC, which is why it's called pay-per-click advertising, because you pay only when someone clicks on your ad. Plus, if we think about the way that Google works, when you run Google ads, where do people go when they want to buy something? They go to Google, right? So they're already searching for the products that you sell, and we're just putting an ad in front of them at the last touch point. Then they click the ad and buy the product. So that's why you have a 10x ROAS right now, and much higher intent audience, because you're only paying when someone looks for the products that you sell, sees the ad and clicks on it. So already the odds are just so much more stacked in your favor, you know? But when it comes down to actually understanding the metrics, there are a few columns here that you're going to want to pay attention to. This is obviously my column setup, which is not over the top, but you can probably ignore some of these columns. Like for someone like yourself who's new to Google Ads, too many columns is just going to be a bit overwhelming, but I'll tell you about the most important ones, okay? So here you have search impression share. Now, the good thing about Google is if you hover over a column, they'll give you an explanation of what each column is. So if you ever forget, you can just hover and it will explain it for you. But in its simplest form, search impression share is the amount of times that your ad was seen based on how many times it is eligible to be seen, right? If you think about Google and the way it works, if someone goes to it and searches for, let's just say, a laptop, and you sell laptops, then that is a term that you are eligible to be shown for. But how often you get shown is displayed as your search impression share, and it's a percentage out of 100. Okay, so if you had 100% search impression share, that means that your ad is being shown 100% of the time for terms that it's eligible to be shown for, which as an advertiser, you might think, great, I want my ad to be seen 100% of the time. But actually, too much visibility is actually a bad thing, because when you think of visibility and clicks in terms of like conversion and your conversion rate in the back end, which we'll talk about at the moment, if you had 100% 100% visibility, you're actually overexposed. That means you're paying the most to be seen the most of the time, which is not a good thing because Google is an auction, right? You're competing against other people to get your ad shown. So if you have 100% visibility, that means you're outbidding everyone else, which means you're going to be overpaying for the clicks that you're getting, which is probably going to bring down your ROAS and also make your returns be diminishing. So actually, there's a sweet spot when it comes to search impression share. You kind of want to be between 40 to 70% in my experience, 40% being perfect for like broader terms. So say you sell a specific type of laptop, right? A MacBook. You may not want to show for terms like just laptop, because laptop might be a bit too generic. You probably want to show for people who are already looking for the specific laptop that you sell, which is a MacBook, for example. So the term MacBook is something that you'd want to show more often for, because that's someone that knows the laptop that they're looking for and the brand, and it's a product that you sell. So there's an example where you might aim for, say, 70% search impression share versus someone who's just looking for a laptop, where you're like, okay, they're looking for the product that I sell, but they're not quite decided yet on the exact one that they want. Therefore, I don't want to pay the same amount to win that customer and get them to my website, because remember, Google's an auction. Instead, I still am interested in bidding on that customer and trying to win that audience, but I don't want to spend as much as I would on someone who's specifically searching for a MacBook, right? So there's an example where you'd probably want to bid less, and therefore you'd want to aim for about 40% search impression share. So I know that was quite a lot, and to someone who maybe doesn't completely understand all of the different metrics yet, hopefully I've explained it in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, it basically means that the potential of, let's say, how often it is shown exactly for that term, and you don't want to overdo it basically because you're overspending. And I want to make a point also, like over here, that's the thing I love about your coaching and like your method, which still seems to be like not that many people talk about it, but you are focused on making profit,
Yep.
not revenue.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of guys online that will promote like a certain shop or method, and let's say, I have 100K revenue, but they have maybe 10% of actual profit.
Yeah.
And for example, with your method, you can have half the revenue, but significantly more profit.
Yeah.
And it's so much better. But yeah, everything's clear about that one.
Yeah, for sure. That is the thing. We want to make sure we're maximizing for profit, because what we're doing this for, to show a revenue screenshot of 100K, but really only make 10, or to show a revenue screenshot of 50K and make 25, you know, as you've seen yourself, you've got 45% net profit margin. And we do that by adjusting our bids and going after terms that are highly relevant, and still bidding on terms that are broader, which is dictated by your search impression share, but bidding a little bit less for those. Okay. We want exposure, but not too much exposure. So what actually impacts your search impression share? Well, remember, Google is an auction, okay? So it's dictated by your cost per click, which is average cost per click, okay? So this is the average amount that you're paying per click. Now, I know yours is in Norwegian crowns, so it's a little bit confusing.
Yeah, it's so you can think about it, it's like $0.4 about.
So you will just divide Norwegian crowns by 10, and that will get you to around about, okay. So on average, you're paying about 40 cents per click, which I guess in British currency would be about 30 pence, right?
Something like that.
So your cost per click is extremely efficient, and that's going to dictate your search impression share. The more you're willing to bid, the more you're willing to pay on Google, the more Google is going to push your ad listing to the top of the results, right? Which is indicated by your search impression share. So we can see over the last 8 days or so, between October 7th and the 15th, that your search impression share is 60%. Now, slightly on the higher side, but that's totally fine. As I said, you can be anywhere between 40 and 70. And if you're converting in the UK and you're profitable, which I know you are, because that's indicated by your profit and loss, then you can continue spending 60% all day long. So the only thing that we'd need to look at is how your search impression share is actually being attributed to each of those 4 products, of which there are 4. Because you may look into it, and we can obviously have a look later, where one product, say, has a 40% search impression share, maybe one has a 60%, but at campaign level, we're seeing the average across all of the products, okay? But the good thing about standard shopping campaigns is we can adjust what we're willing to pay per click. We tell Google, hey, we want to bid, say, up to 40 cents or 50 cents or 60 cents for a click for this specific product, and you can actually change that at product level. So we can make sure when we're reviewing the data where your search impression share is. If search impression share is too high and we feel overexposed, we can reduce your cost per click, or what you're willing to pay as a cost per click. And if your search impression share is too low, we can increase what you're willing to pay as a cost per click, getting us within that sweet spot of the 40 to 70%. Okay, follow everything so far?
Yeah.
Cool. So search impression share is important. Your clicks and your average cost per click is of course important. You're profitable, so we want to make sure you're getting as many clicks as possible. And if we're unable to generate more right now, just based on the products that you have and the search demand that there is in the UK, then we need to of course add on more products or more markets, which is what you did yesterday by adding on Australia. Now, the other thing we're going to want to take a look at is of course your click-through rate. So this is how often people click on your ad based on how often they've seen it. Okay, so search impression share is your visibility, click-through rate is how often people are then clicking on the ad when they've seen it. Now, as a rule of thumb, click-through rate really actually depends on the product that you're selling, the price point of the product, how much competition there is. So there's not like an exact click-through rate that you should be aiming for, but ultimately you want it to be as high as possible for search terms that are relevant to the products that you sell. There are a few things that dictate your click-through rate on the Google Shopping Network, which is your product image, your price point, and of course your product title. If all of these things are relevant and they're visually appealing, then you're much more likely to win the click. So you want to aim for a high click-through rate for relevant search terms, and these are the things you're going to want to monitor and split test in order to improve your click-through rate. So again, we'd look at your individual products within your campaign. Maybe one has a 1.5% click-through rate, maybe one has a 1%, and maybe there's another with a 0.6. Doesn't really matter. What's important is that you understand the metric and you understand the different variables and the levers that you can implement to change that, which, like I say, product title, image, and price point. If all of these things are split tested and you test different prices, different images, you will find the sweet spot to get the highest click-through rate. And at the moment, if your campaign is converting, if your search impression share is good, you want to maximize your click-through rate, right? Because if we're not able to increase your search impression share anymore because you're in the sweet spot, and therefore we're not able to really increase your clicks much more because you're already getting a decent portion of visibility, the problem is people just aren't clicking it on the ad enough, then the next lever we can pull is your click-through rate. Because if we double your click-through rate, we've just doubled the amount of high intent clicks that you're getting. And if you've got twice as much traffic to your store and the conversion rate remains the same, that means you've got twice as many conversions. People don't think about this, right? People just think about more traffic, more products, but then what happens is they sacrifice their profitability because they're just trying to send as much traffic as possible, but they forget about the intricacies of the detail at some of these important leading metrics.
Yeah, that's clear.
So those are like probably your biggest things that you're going to want to look at: impression share, clicks, cost per click, and your click-through rate. And then of course your conversion rate and your conversions. Unfortunately, we don't have any data here because your conversion tracking isn't working accurately, but obviously you're going to implement something off the back of this call to resolve that. So now, once you have that conversion data, these columns here are also going to be important, okay? Your conversion value per cost, so conversion value divided by your ad spend, is your return on advertising spend, which will be indicated by this column here. But at the moment there's nothing because you have no conversion tracking working. Conversion value is of course the value of conversions that have been attributed to your campaigns, which should match what you're seeing in Shopify. It's very unlikely you'll get 1-to-1 accuracy, but like I said, you can expect 70 to 80% conversion tracking, which is what you should be aiming for really, and what any good conversion tracking provider should be able to provide. And then you have your cost per conversion here, which is of course the amount that you paid to generate the conversion. Also important, which you'll analyze in alignment with your cost of goods sold sheet. So when you refer back to that, you'll see your product cost, your shipping cost, and of course you can see what your potential profit margin is then as a price point and as a percentage. So if you know your profit potential as a price point on a £545 product is about £350, then you can spend up to £350 on ads in the worst case to break even, which is a lot of money. I mean, you've only spent £75 in the month to date, which is 15 days, right? So you have so much more you can spend and still be profitable. So you're going to want to monitor your cost per conversion at a product level and always refer back to your cost of goods sold sheet, because the business economics need to make sense, which is why in the academy, I show you how to source products that have 75% gross profit margin and a big enough profit potential. So products that are ideally $100 plus, so that you have enough to spend on advertising. And this is another thing that people disregard a lot of the time. They don't understand the business economics. If the fundamentals don't make sense, if you're paying too much for your click, if you don't have enough profit margin available, then the business economics aren't going to match up. And it's the fundamentals of a successful business. Like, the numbers need to make sense. Anytime that an investor comes in and looks at potentially buying a business, what do they look at? The profit and loss. So like, these things are so important from the get-go when you're doing your research, to have these things in mind. Like, what are the business economics? Do they stack up? Are they in my favor? Can I generate a sale for less than the profit margin potential? If the answers are yes, 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 and yes, then bring that product to market and you're much more likely to be profitable because the economics make sense,
Yeah, it's radically different than what I was doing before. And the coaching that I received, I would only say that it's this, what we are doing over here, is actually building a real business rather than having like a side hustle of, I mean, sorry to say, but basically scamming people online with some, cheap products, let's say fashion, for example. This feels way much more mature, and yeah, it's radically different.
Yeah, for sure. I know it can be a little bit overwhelming for someone that's come from Meta to Google. And I think that's why so many people in e-com avoid Google, because they just don't understand it. It can be a little bit overwhelming at first, but you've gone from complete beginner, launching your ads not long ago, to now generating almost a conversion a day for the past few days.
Yeah.
And you've done that with little to no intervention from myself. You've just followed all of the pre-recorded content. Yes, you had a few questions along the way, but that's why you're investing in the mentorship, to learn. And you've learned, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but a lot in quite a short amount of time, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I would about to find this information online on YouTube. Some of it's online, but it's just not structured. It would take me months, if not years, truly. And also in business and starting like a new venture, you need that momentum. So for me to like invest in your mentorship, one of the best decisions. It's already like paying for itself, and yeah, it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And this is still early days.
Yeah, I mean, we're just in the beginning.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So once you've sorted conversion tracking, once you understand the different metrics, it really just comes down to what I was saying earlier about horizontal and vertical scale. And I've already shown you how to add on additional markets, which we do through Shopify and of course Process. And you've successfully added on Australia yesterday. So now at this point, there's nothing really stopping you add on other English speaking markets. Like you mentioned, you've got 4 products in 2 markets. So there's nothing stopping you advertise 5, 6, 7, 10 products in 5 markets. And that is how you scale horizontally and vertically. You're profitable already. Reinvest some of that ad spend back into more markets. Listing products is free. You only pay when someone clicks on the ad anyway. So refer back to the 4-step product validation method. Find products that have high search demand, low competition, products that are evergreen, and products that you can sell year round with a high profit potential, so $100 plus. List them, source them using the private agent, which is provided in the academy. Get them listed on your store, and then just add them to Google Ads. And it's a repeatable process, And I think by this point, hopefully after going through this call as well, you have a very clear plan of the next steps, and you can see how possible it's going to be now to go from 1 conversion a day to 2 to 3 to 5 to 10. Yeah. And before you know it, you're going to be at 10K month plus revenue and profit. If it maintains as it is, which I don't see why it wouldn't, 45% net profit margin. If you do 10K pounds in sales, that's £4,500, about $5,500. That's someone who's gone from spending 20K on ad spend on Meta, 10K on coaching on Meta, to then spending £75 on Google and already being net positive and profitable. So, really it's just a matter of time. It's the best time of year to do it. Q4, we're halfway through October. So all you need to do now really is just double down, more products, more markets, and you're going to hit 10K a month before you know it.
Yeah, that's going to be sick because, like you said, to be fair, in the beginning when I entered like the Google space, I realized that it's way much more advanced and it seemed much more complicated. And to be fair, it is, but that's also the reason why the competition is way much lower with that. But now understanding how it works, thanks to you and thanks to the program, now I also see, it works. So expanding now just to new markets, adding those products in because now I know they work. Yeah, I'm super pumped, man. And it's Q4, the best part of the year. So yeah, it's going to be lit.
For sure. Let's get it. And you know what I just want to show as well is, as you know, it's not just you. You've been in the academy, you've been in the community, and it's just been so amazing to witness from my side. And I know you're very supportive to the other members as well. I mean, here was a post from yourself just 8 days ago where you made £545 from £1.40 in ad spend. We then got Patrick, who I know you've been communicating with, and he's always joining the weekly group calls as well. He posted 10 days ago how he got his first sale. And the thing with Patrick is it wasn't just one. He got 2 sales within 30 minutes with a price point of £147 each. So that's £300 in sales. Again, from complete beginner to launching his store, doing the research, setting up the Google ads. And he's made over £300 in revenue within 30 minutes of each other. And I think as well, we had some really nice margins on there. Yeah, 70% profit margin. So, that's about £200 in profit. Maybe he needs to take off a little bit for ad spend. But again, when he showed me his Google ads, he had spent barely anything. So, Patrick's crushing it as well. We've got Dan here, who also got his first sale just 13 days ago, which $350. So it's like, where there's no low ticket sales in here. Yours was £545. Patrick's was £147, of which he got 2. We've got Dan here who had a $350 sale. We've then got Oscar, who done $26,000 in Google revenue, 60 days after launch. So again, he's absolutely crushing it. I think he had some insane results here as well. He said we generated 16.6k in the first 30 days from 3.6k in ad spend. So what would that be? That's like a 5x ROAS. In September, we've nearly doubled that to 26k on a 9.7x spend. So actually what I should say is he's saying 26k in monthly revenue, but actually they generated 16k in the first 30 days, 26k in the second month as well. So in total, that's actually, what would that be? 42k in revenue.
This is sick, man.
Next goal, 50k per month. Keep in mind, this is just in the last, like what? This is 5 days ago, 13 days ago, 10 days ago, 8 days ago. So like everyone that's in the community is just absolutely crushing, and it's so good to see from my side, and especially for you as well. I know that I'm really excited every time you're messaging me with these wins. Like I just love to see it, bro. It's very fulfilling for me as a coach and as a mentor to allow the people who actually put in the time and the energy to help them succeed. Like often I'll say to people, it's a financial investment for you, but for me, it's a time and energy investment. Like it's a two-way thing, right? And I think that's why we have such a high success rate in here, because I'm very selective with the people that I work with. You know this, like there's not one person in the group who doesn't get on with everyone. Like it's a good crowd, everyone's communicating on the group calls, and everyone's crushing it together. And for me, it's just so great to see.
Yeah, that's actually one thing I can mention also, that when I started with Ecom, I felt totally like alone and confused. And, you know, you sit there at home with your laptop and you click buttons and there's some issues, obviously, you need to solve, and you're totally alone. And over here, it's like, I made already a couple of friends. I'm just like, how many? I have like 4 or 5 friends already in the group that some of them I actually even met in real life, right?
Yeah.
And that also in itself, like the community is sick. And where would I found those people like in everyday life? I wouldn't, you know, so that's also a great thing about being part of this.
Yeah. And I guess just to finish on, is there maybe one thing you would say to someone who is maybe considering joining as a member of the academy? Like, what would you say to them if you think they're on the fence, or maybe they've tried Meta and it didn't work? Because I think they'll be able to relate to your experience.
Yeah, I mean, everybody needs to make their own decisions. But to be fair, like I've been part of different programs, different like communities, and yours is by far, like by not a little bit better, it's just by magnitude better in comparison for me personally. And we just went through my results, you know, and it only shows, right, that it works. And also like you are super authentic and you are really helpful in like giving tips and very organized and yeah, just pushing forward. So I would say that if you're like considering or like you're on the fence and you're wanting to get some help and you're wanting to find a program that actually works, yeah, I think I'm a life example that, yeah, what can I say? I would recommend it for sure.
I appreciate it.
It's worth multiple times the investment. No issues. Like if you think about it, if you want to be a doctor, you would study 5 years, 7 years, or whatnot, and get a certain level of income, right? Over here, you invest, you know, a fair amount of money, but it's very fair compared to value. You get very fair, and yet you get to skip all those years, and within a couple of weeks, producing so much like income, and it's just the beginning.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I appreciate the kind words. I mean, most of these guys that we're looking at, especially like yourself, are going from complete beginners. I know you had some Meta experience, but complete beginners with how we do it, building a store, doing the product research, generating their first sale in as little as like 4 to 6 weeks, which I think is crazy. You know, some of these guys like Dan, who we just showed the example for, he works construction in Australia. He has no e-com experience, and yet within, I think his was actually slightly longer. I think he got his first sale after about 8 weeks. Everyone's situation is slightly different, but I think on average, you know, 4 to 6 weeks. So I appreciate the kind words, and what I would say is anyone that's considering, I guess, building like a branded Google Ads dropshipping store, the best thing to do is see the link in the video description to learn more, and we'll go from there.